Native Americans, also known as American Indians or indigenous people, have inhabited these lands for thousands of years. But in the past few centuries, Native Americans have faced dreadful acts, including forced displacements, assimilation, and colonization, changing their way of life and causing a struggle to maintain culture and traditions. Now we'll take a closer look as we hear from individuals who are preserving their traditions and ensuring that they are passed down to the next generation. This is Tribal Identities. Hello, and welcome to the show, Tribal Identities. I am your host, Clarissa Friday, and I will take you guys along as we discuss the importance of Native American culture and the role it plays in the lives of these tribal members. Today, roughly 2% of the U.S. population is Native American, and while there are currently 574 tribal nations, 12 are located right here in Wisconsin. While you may find some similarities, each tribe does differ in language, art, and ceremonies. I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest for the show, Siobhan Marks, to share some of her knowledge. Siobhan, thank you for coming to the show.
Well, miigwech for having me. I'd like to introduce myself in the language, if I could. Buju, Sigwanodanans, Indigenous, Megizi, Indodem, Odawa Zayaganing, Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, Kwe Indao, Menominee Zayaganing and Dojaba, Neju Medeo. So I gave you the name that the spirit knows me as. I'm Eagle Clan. I'm a descendant of the Lakota Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. My family was originally from Rice Lake in Wisconsin, and I'm second degree Medewan, and it is absolutely an honor to be here.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I know you kind of started to tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of your background. Would you like to share any more about yourself?
Sure. I grew up in northern Wisconsin. My family was born, raised, and lived Flambeau, LCO, in Rice Lake, in those areas. But my mother and I were born in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. So we were about an hour away from our reservation, but we had very little contact. And I liken that to what we have here in the city of Milwaukee, where a great many of our Native youth are lacking that regular contact with their tribal community. So I happen to teach at a school where we're trying to help bridge those connections so that when they do go home to visit, they know our ceremonies and our language and our songs.
Oh, I really appreciate that. That's amazing. Is there anything that you want to talk about when it comes to your tribal heritage?
Well, I'm very proud to be from Lakota. It's an amazing community. We have a world-class language immersion school, Waduka Dogging there. Also a very important spiritual leader for the Ojibwe people. He's known often as Eddie Benton Benet. I know him in our lodge as Badwebedin Benesi Abun. He was a grand chief of our Three Fires Medewan Lodge, of which I call home. So very proud of those two things for sure.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. What is your current involvement in the Native community?
Well, I volunteer wherever I can. I serve on 2 Native boards here in the Milwaukee area. I'm a dancer, an auntie, a koko, a grandma. I get to work at a school with 364 beautiful Native children, and so tried to be as involved as I can. I had the great honor of learning about our water ceremonies, our water walks, how to stand up for our water from the late Josephine Mandaman, also known as Badasage Abun. She is known as the original water walker, so that's where I've received all of my teachings. And with my Auntie Orlan and I and many others, Madekwe, who care for this water and do ceremonies for the water, we are trying to teach those ceremonies in ways of respecting and standing up for our water to our children.
That's awesome. I know I have met you at the Indian Community School. I've worked with you personally, and I've gotten to attend one of your water walk events. How often are you guys holding those?
Well, at the school, we try to do a water walk on our grounds. We're very fortunate. We have a beautiful 178 acres, and we have 3 ponds there. So with another Midday-Quay, one of our board members, we've been teaching our children. We have a group called We Do This for the Water. And my partner, Mark Denning, has also been working with the boys. But that's all connected. There's a role in protecting, standing up, praying for our water for both male and female. So we try to do that at least once a year. But last year, I participated in 3 water walks around the state, around Milwaukee. We did our first one called the Sturgeon Water Walk. That was for the 3 rivers right here in Milwaukee.
I think that's amazing. I understand the importance of that, and I thank you for sharing that with us. Mm-hmm. It's great to meet with you and talk with you, and we'll continue to talk more as we move along.
Sounds good.
To explore the Native American culture further, we spoke with moccasin maker Rachel Jeske. Through her art, Rachel gives us her insight not only on her reason for creating moccasins, but why she is passionate about teaching others to carry on this tradition. A lot of time, craft makers work from home, as not many jobs out there are in this line of work. For Rachel, getting her first pair of moccasins is what made her become the moccasin maker that she is today.
I work out of my home, so besides teaching, I make moccasins and I sell moccasins at powwows and at other craft events. I had a favorite pair of moccasins from when I was little that a prairie band elder, taught my mom how to make moccasins, and then she made me a pair of moccasins. And that was my inspiration that I drew from to learn how to make moccasins.
Moccasins are known to be passed down from their elders, as their elders are the keepers of their knowledge, traditions, and history.
When I started learning, there wasn't a lot of resources that I could find, so I just went on this journey kind of by myself, and just with my mind I deconstructed my favorite pair of moccasins, and I started drawing patterns on like newspaper, and I would tear apart my old jeans and use that as fabric to test out my patterns. And once I felt good about a pattern that I created, I finally cut into leather.
Moccasins are made to be able to give respect to the earth, but their designs do differ from tribe to tribe.
While a lot of the cultures are very similar, there are some very distinct differences. Like hundreds of years ago, different people could be walking around and you could look at somebody and tell probably which tribe they're from by looking at their moccasins, by looking at their clothing, by looking at how they ordain themselves. It's here, they're all slightly different styles. When you can see how there's a split here in the toe, and then in these other moccasins too, these all have like a splits in these toes as well. So that's one similarity. But by looking at the different styles of moccasins, like you could tell generally what region people were from. Learning how to make moccasins, it's important to keep that going. One, a lot of knowledge was almost lost. So many of us are on a journey of reclaiming our knowledge. But I always, whenever I get a chance to take classes from elders or other moccasin makers, I still to this day will jump at a chance to take a class and learn from them and be reaffirmed in what I do, or and have conversations with them and just share knowledge.
Moccasins are a form of artistic expression, storytelling, spiritual connection, and cultural identity.
A lot of times Native Americans get kind of grouped into one group, Native Americans. So my goal is to make more moccasin makers, and beyond that, to make more moccasin teachers.
There really is so much beauty, artistry, and hard work that goes into each piece of beadwork. I know I enjoy seeing it, especially when you can begin to identify them by their creators. Siobhan, do you remember your first pair of moccasins?
I sure do. They were made by my uncle. And what he did was he beaded the vamps for me, and he gave me those first. And I literally put them on my bedside table so that I would see them before I went to bed, and I would see them when I woke up. They were so beautiful. I still have them. I have everything he's ever made for me. But that was my very first pair of moccasins.
That's amazing. And you kind of touched a little bit what they mean to you. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the importance of that and what that means?
Oh, absolutely. You know, as a researcher and someone who really appreciates our traditions, I'm always trying to learn more and connect more with how things were. And I don't like to use the word in the past, so it's our ancestral knowledge, and really trying to connect with that and bring it back and make sure it's alive, a living thing in us. So when I think about our moccasins, that is the original footwear of our people. Mm-hmm. And we're still making them. And in many ways, we're making them the way that our ancestors made them. We are continuing to go back to that way. We're tanning our own deer hides, which is incredible, and smoking them and making those traditional patterns. And of course, we have contemporary ways of making moccasins as well. But I think it's really remarkable that we've been able to connect to our original footwear and to be able to wear them not only in powwows or for gatherings, but in ceremony.
Yes, I agree. I know moccasins for myself. I grew up with my mother who is Ho-Chunk, and there's the Ho-Chunk style of moccasin. Mm-hmm. And my mother used to make moccasins for all my children when they were first born. She'd make their first pair of moccasins, and the story behind that. Mm-hmm. I remember her sharing that with me. And just being able to know that now today there's a resurgence of trying to bring that back into everyday or a little bit more. I know in the month of November, is it? They have Rock Your Mocks, mm-hmm. and that is something that's celebrated nationally now, correct?
It certainly is, and we make a very big deal about it at our school. We're teaching our children how to make moccasins, and we start them very early with the basic design and construction. Even though they're using construction paper, they're taking a piece of yarn on a needle and running that through the paper. And so they're learning how those tactile skills that are needed in order to make moccasins. They're learning what the various parts are of a moccasin, how to design, compose, and they continue to work on that till they get a little older, and then they start to make them in felt. And then the next step is to actually make them in deer hide. So we really want our children to know, we want them to be able to make their own. They continue to grow, so their feet are growing, mm-hmm. so their chances are they'll grow out of them before they wear out of them. But we live in an exciting time with that regard, that we're able to do those things.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think it is so important. Next, we're going to go into the grandmother's dress, which has recently become more popular within the last year, but many didn't know the story behind it. Many women try to keep their traditions alive from their ancestors, and like Monica being a craft maker, she tries to do just that.
I come from a family of artists. I have a lot of painters in my family. I have a lot of beadwork artists in my family. I have a lot of regalia makers in my family, moccasin makers. It's kind of like everybody kind of had their specialty. I'm still kind of trying to find my specialty per se. I just kind of say like I'm a maker, you know, and I try to learn as much as I can while also keeping the things that I've learned and the teachings that I've learned along the way for my family kind of close to my heart, you know, and if somebody needs help learning something, I try to help them.
In the Native American culture, keeping the traditions alive is what brings them closer to their ancestors' land and language.
I just try my best to be a good ancestor for the rest of my Ojibwe people, to remember a traditional way of doing things and to just kind of keep that knowledge and the culture going. We almost lost this dress in Ojibwe. The words that we use is Gukumisan Ugudas, which is our grandmother's dress.
The grandmother's dress was created during the reservation era. Almost losing this dress was due to many factors, including dresses and skirts being seen as more fashionable, colonization, and the practice of assimilation.
It's also known as the Ojibwe strap dress, woodland strap dress, woodland deer dress. The reason for the deer dress name specifically, it was pre-contact, meaning, you know, before we had any colonial contact. It would have been made with 2 deer hides, hence the shape here. made mine as historically accurate as possible to the reservation era.
Many women like Monica are trying to bring back that connection to their culture, as women today do not know that that dress is a part of their history.
I wanted this dress. I had a dream about this dress before I had the opportunity to make it. One of my uncles, he's passed away now, but he always, to quote him, he says, I don't mind everybody says that we're all indigenous, but you're Ojibwe, never forget that. It's like we've lost some things, we've learned other things, we've adapted as a culture to the materials that we have available. Like, that's just kind of how the culture keeps going.
It's incredible how Monica has been able to reconnect that part of her history that was lost for some time. Siobhan, I know you also have a very close connection to this dress. Would you be willing to share some of that information with us?
Absolutely. When I first wanted to dance, and I knew I wanted to be a women's traditional dancer, and I started asking, well, what is our traditional dress for myself as an Ojibwe woman? And no one really had the answer. We knew about the jingle dress, and there were people that thought, well, some sort of dress in buckskin. So with my uncle's help, we started researching. We traveled all over, went to all the cultural museums that we could find, actually dug through every piece of book, literature, magazine article, newsletter, anything we could find, talked to scores and scores of elders across Turtle Island here. And we were able to piece together the story of this dress. And this was our pre-contact dress. This is the dress that our grandmothers have always worn.
And so I know you talked about the research. What prompted you to start that research then? I know you said that you wanted to know a little bit more about what was your original dress?
Because I wanted authenticity. I really wanted to know, and I recognized fairly early on that there was a huge gap missing for us as woodland women as to the dress of our grandmothers. And so it was intriguing to try and solve that puzzle, solve that riddle. And I'm still learning. I'm still having dreams, still uncovering pieces, still talking with elders, still rediscovering other aspects of the dress.
That's amazing. I know Monica had mentioned the dress being called different names. Can you explain what it meant by the reservation era?
Absolutely, and I would be remiss if I didn't say how proud of Monica I am. I did 2 workshops in Lakota, and she came to one of them and has been very dedicated to making this dress. So I'm so pleased that she mentioned that. She showed the 2 straps there. It's often called a strap dress. I try not to call the dress that because that's the colonizers' words, which is why we call it Gokumisanan Ogadas. But those are the legs of the deer. And what she's talking about, the reservation era, that is when we were rounded up and put on reservations. The historical era before that was called the fur trade era. And that's when we were trading for things like this cloth. I brought a piece here today. And you and I are both wearing a ribbon skirt. This was our first ribbon skirt. Our grandmothers made their dress out of this wool and sewed ribbon on it. And thus was born the first ribbon skirt. So Monica is remembering that there are different historical eras. We have our pre-contact, our fur trade era, our reservation era, and I have to say my most favorite, which is our reclaiming era. That's where we are today. As women, we are reclaiming our original dress and wearing them proudly.
Yes, thank you for that. I love hearing about the efforts of others keeping the Native American culture alive. I know there are many aspects to that effort, including language revitalization and food sovereignty. Powwows are just one event that creates space for us to share our culture and art. It is usually open to the public, and it is a time for family and friends to enjoy food, art, music, and dancing. Kurt, Michelle, and DJ give us their insight on what it means for them to celebrate their culture while also dancing with a purpose. Powwows are known to be not only a traditional but also a social gathering for Native Americans celebrating their culture. To these dancers, it means more than just putting on their regalia and performing.
We're the storytellers. We're the storytellers of our dance, and it's the original way of dancing.
Storyteller dance tells the story of the history of Native Americans. The dancer's upper body and the head tell the story.
every tribe, say if we're gonna like my category, men's traditional, we all have the same basic two steps. It's just what you put into it, what makes you different,
For Kurt, dancing gives him a spiritual connection only he feels when dancing.
A lot of people, some people go to church, some people go to a hall, some people go to, their practice religion. This is the way I do it. This is the way I pray. This is the way I was taught to pray. And I'm real happy with this. I'm satisfied in my life to be able to do this, because a lot of this dancing we do is praying. Even though it looks like we're having fun, but what other way to pray is to have fun, right?
The jingle dress dance, worn here, is the healing dance. The jingle is known to heal the mind and spirit with its sound.
Each cone starts out as a flat circle, and then we roll each cone into the cone that's going to be put on the dress. And as we roll that cone, we say a prayer. And as communities are reclaiming the languages and the traditional ways, we're starting to see a lot more of our original styles of artwork.
With its regalia being known as the medicine dress, it holds a very special meaning for Michelle Reed.
It means a lot to be able to be a jingle dress dancer and to represent this dance that originates from our people. And I feel that it's a big responsibility that we have as jingle dress dancers, but it's also an honor to carry this dress because of the need to educate our youth and to create different opportunities for our young people to continue.
For DJ, dancing the woodland style brings him closer to home.
The woodland style of dance, for me, it means it's a men's traditional dance, but to also exhibit what my grandfathers acted in war, what they saw, what they experienced.
The woodland dance is a way for the dancers to reconnect with their ancestors, to tell the story of past warriors returning home from hunting or battling.
With all the history that most of us know of, the oppression that has come to all tribes of the United States and in Canada, we are, as I say, we are still here. We are still trying to live the way our ancestors did. Not even that, live the way our grandparents did. We still try to speak our languages. We still try to, exhibit who we are through our dress. The Native American culture means a lot to me, but perseverance overall.
I really enjoy seeing others celebrating their culture in a way that's special to them. I know in this we touch a little bit about the jingle dress and a little on the traditional dress. But at Powell's you can find more categories of dance, and would you like to speak a little bit more about what you could find around the powwow?
Oh my goodness, well it depends on which tribal community that powwow is being held or hosted in. If you go to a really large powwow such as Hunting Moon that's hosted by our Potawatomi relatives here in Milwaukee, you may see all different categories. What I think you mentioned were the traditional and the jingle. We also have fancy shawl for women. And if we were in Haudenosaunee country, we would have smoke dancers for women. Then of course, there would be all the dance categories for men as well. And there's so much that goes into a powwow. The dancing and our regalia is absolutely beautiful. And we are telling those stories, and we have the singers and the drums, but we also honor our veterans. And it's very much a place where we honor our elders. You'll notice that if you go as the grand entry, it's always the oldest that go first in that lineup after our veterans. And it goes all the way down to the wee little tiny tots. It's just a great teaching and reteaching about how we honor our elders in our communities.
Yes. And now you spoke a little bit about the drummers and the singers, and what is it to be, like I've heard that is the heartbeat, right?
Absolutely, the heartbeat of our mother. So when our mothers are carrying us, that's the first sounds that we're hearing other than her voice, but it is her heartbeat right, that we're hearing. And so our drum, that is that teaching, that's the heartbeat of our Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And it connects us to all things because we don't separate ourselves from the land, from our Mother, the Earth.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Miigwech, Siobhan, for sharing your story and knowledge with us. I really enjoy talking with you today. And as we approach the end of the show, I want you all to know my appreciation for those who shared their art and knowledge with us. As a mother, I understand the importance of the efforts being made to teach our children their culture, and I am grateful for the ability to not only capture images of dancers in motion, but also watching as others bring their children into the circle and allow them to find their path, their dance, and their style. That is all the time we have today for the show. I am your host, Clarissa Friday, and this is Tribal Identities.